Good morning and welcome to another edition of The Shift. Well, we have literally just shifted into the third quarter. It is July 1st. I'm flat out excited with the guests that we have with us on today. For those of you that have been following our podcast show throughout the second quarter, get ready for what is about to manifest in the third quarter. And I do need you to do one thing is to share this because I'm telling you, the guest we have today, she's going to spill the tea on this show. So Halle Eavelyn, welcome, welcome, welcome. Listen, but for those that's listening, let me share some juicy information about this person. She was a USA Today. She is the USA Today best-selling author, keynote speaker on wealth transformation and passive income. Halle, welcome.
Thank you so much, Catherine. I'm super happy to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. Listen, when we met, it was a couple weeks ago. It was like a quick video chat, and we was able to connect. The thing that I think I immediately gravitated to, one was your energy, right? But then two was the knowledge that you possess. I mean, it was might have been like a 15-minute call, and in that 15 minutes, so many ideas downloaded just from having that conversation with you. So first, tell everyone what stimulated you to even want to start a business, particularly becoming a wealth transformation speaker.
Thank you so much. I love it when I can inspire people. So I'm hoping this conversation is going to be a continuation of that for all of your listeners. I've actually been a serial entrepreneur. I think we get called founders these days for about 35 years. I was actually working as an actress in my early 20s, and I got a chance to start a company, to co-found a company, which would actually, we didn't even know this at the time, create the world's first interactive movies. And so at 25, I was the president of a company where I was one of only 5 women executives in the entire software industry. Now, at the time, I didn't know, I mean, I could see in the rooms, I was the only woman usually ever. So I could see that I was an anomaly, but I didn't know how much of an anomaly. I was speaking at Women in Nutraceuticals at their annual conference. I'm on their advisory board. I was speaking there last year, and a woman raised her hand and was complaining about the same stuff that I was complaining about 35 years ago when I started my own business, my first business. And that was being the only woman in the room and still having a hard time being heard. And I just thought that was so interesting. It's 35 years later and the world is in some regards still the same. Now, for me, I got to co-found that company. I spent 10 years in real estate. I actually wrote and sold screenplays. My first screenplay sold for 6 figures, which was very cool. So I've had like this super checkered experience. But for me, the most important part of all of my background is that I had a spiritual awakening back in 1997 on my very first trip to Egypt. So I started leading spiritual tours around the world. Then I decided to write down what had happened to me to share with other people. So I wrote my first book, Red Goddess Rising. And so I'm running businesses, I'm leading spiritual tours, I'm writing kind of all at the same time. And eventually that's what led to my coaching, which led to women making a lot more money working with me, which led to me saying, hey, I want to do transformational wealth coaching. I better start learning about the wealth part of this, in a more formal way. So I've been studying that for about 8 years now, but studying like I could get an MBA at this point. Like I love sucking up that information and then spitting it back out. So I've been really loving this kind of new conversation that we're starting to have around women and money.
Halle, as I hear you share, I hear your passion, I hear your purpose. Through every word that you share, it is taking us through your personal journey that you went through. And so for those that are tuned in, you are tuned into The Shift we want you to do one thing. We want you to hit the share button. We want you to text this link to someone that you know they are in a transitional place in their life. And on this episode is going to be a lot of information that's going to be shared to help us elevate to the next level. Well, Haley, you know, I peeped your LinkedIn page and I was looking into your about section. And I'm just going to read the opening line. It says, "Are you ready for an extraordinary shift? One that finally breaks through all the stuck places." Talk about the shift and talk about the stuck places.
I'd love to. This is so juicy. So I told you I've had like all these different careers, right?
Yes.
I have had to reinvent myself almost every decade, and I've just gone through another massive shift again. So when the reason I didn't stay in the software business is the entire industry collapsed in the dot-com boom.
Mm-hmm.
And after the dot-com boom, and then explosion. And then after that, I was in real estate, and then the real estate industry collapsed. I'm going, I picked two industries. They both collapsed. Is it me? You tell yourself all of these crazy stories, but it really taught me lessons in resilience each time, and the ability to reinvent myself. We didn't invent that word pivot until COVID, but yeah, that thing. So here I am, like, let's do it again. So I've been leading the spiritual tours for over 20 years now. I've the Passive Income Power Plan, the book that is on the USA Today bestseller list, is my fifth book. Red Goddess Rising was my first book. So I've been, doing that kind of like in the background all along. And then I have had to reinvent myself multiple times. I had a spiritual awakening again. So the first one took me from being an atheist into being this deeply spiritual person in one breath. Like, that was the powerful shift there. And when something like that happens, where it's like a seismic experience, you have to ground yourself, and you have to ask, which parts of me are still like normal, and which parts of me are now completely shifted, that I'm going to have to like be okay with this new version of myself. And it's really the being okay with yourself. That's the most important thing, that and the resilience. Because when something like this happens, it can be so deeply upsetting to your whole nervous system, because we don't like change. Like, we're human, our human being bodies are not wired to handle change well. So I had another spiritual awakening. This one was about love, and this was about 15 years ago. I ended up leaving my husband of nearly 25 years, moving 3,000 miles across the country and taking up with a woman. So that was another, like, right, total seismic shift. And at that point, by then I was like, okay, let me design my life instead of letting life just happen to me. So when I knew that I was leaving, I was asking, like, okay, well, what do I want to do next? And I wanted to be able to work from anywhere in the world. I wanted to be able to start doing the kind of work that I was doing on the tours, but at home. And so that's when I started coaching. And I discovered that because I had learned to coach, because women would come on my tours and say, like, like my Eat, Pray, Love tours, women were like, okay, I have a week and I want to experience all the changes Liz Gilbert did. And I'm like, that was like a year, right? And now you're trying to do it in a week. But I was pulling tools out of my toolbox and I was helping them, and they were shifting really fast. So that became the core of my coaching work. So it's like, you can, when you're going through a shift, you can pull from what was into what is, and take that into your future. And those are choices too. So that's been very exciting to be able to say, like, where can I use these skills that I've already learned in this new thing that I'm doing? And the last thing that I want to say about that is, I just went through another giant shift again. I left that relationship of 14 years, and I am now single for the first time since I was 24. And I am living by myself for the first time since I was 24. And I'm discovering new things. I'm discovering me. I'm on what I call the season of Halle, right? And you would have your own season, of course. You'd have the season of Catherine, or your listeners would have the season of whoever they are. But for me, the season of Halle is learning what I like, learning what I enjoy, learning to do for me, and then letting somebody else add to that. And I know that that for me is lessons around receiving and
Yeah.
not always needing to be in service. So many of us choose to be in service, but it gets to the point where that we're like, we've locked ourselves out of our own desires.
Yeah.
And so this shift for me is about coming into my own.
Hmm.
And I think it's a lesson that I think a lot of women need. I see living alone, I see being alone very differently than I ever did this entire time when I was looking at it from the outside, coupled with my person. But there's so much joy in it for me. And I don't know what the future is going to hold, but I
Hmm.
know it will hold shifts. And
Yeah.
so I just like keep coming into, I'm resilient and I can keep inventing myself as much as I need to.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate you sharing all of that and your transparency because the shift in our life, we're going to experience many shifts. And for those that are tuned in, you are tuned into the shift. I am Catherine E. Trotter, your host, and we are here having a conversation with Halle, and we're talking about the shift. And it was so in alignment, even when I saw on your LinkedIn, because our show is called The Shift. When I saw the about us and the shift, and then we had our one-on-one, it was obvious that you needed to be a voice in our podcast series to kick off this third quarter. So I want to unpack some things that you were saying. And it was a word that you used was repurpose. And I think sometimes we can get stuck in our life in one mode. And you also mentioned another thing in servitude, because we as women, obviously, and just I think, I don't know if it's innate or if it's just how we are taught, that we naturally just give, sometimes to the point that we are absolutely depleted.
Yeah.
And if we get to a place of being depleted, we're not in self-discovery. You talked about that. You talked about now you are just really to yourself, but in that space is joy. In that's what I'm hearing from you, is joy, because you're in this self-discovery space. So I'm listening and I'm taking in everything that you're saying, and I think this is vital because we're going to get into your book because that's juicy too, and we're going to unpack some of those things. But let's talk about, we're now in the third quarter. How should we be shifting our thinking in the third quarter?
Well, so I love the idea of a 12-week year. And that's a
Hmm.
book that somebody else wrote. But
Hmm.
the idea is that you would look at really each quarter as being a whole year unto itself. And I think
Mm.
that's a major shift in thinking that has such benefit. So they say that let me see, I want to get this quote right.
Mhm.
We overestimate what we can do in 10 years. We underestimate what we can do in a year. And
Mm.
I think that that's important because, like, we'll look 10 years down the road and go, oh, of course I'll be wealthy. Oh, of
Mhm.
course I'll have the person of my dreams. Oh, of course I'll have the perfect house. But in
Mhm.
the short term, we're like, I can barely take care of myself, right?
Mhm.
So it's a matter of shifting that perspective. And I love the idea, like, if what if your third, because time and space don't actually exist, right? Let's start with
Mhm.
that as a basis.
Okay. Talk about it.
We
Break it down.
we know time and space don't exist because, like, for example, what time is it right now in Australia? We're recording this podcast at 9 o'clock in the morning, and in Australia, it's already 9 o'clock at night. By the time
Mm.
it's 9 o'clock at night here, it's going to be tomorrow in Australia. So time
Mm.
is very relative, right?
Mhm.
And then space is also very relative. Like, you get the astronauts who have just come back, they have talked about, and most astronauts talk about this, that when you get enough distance away from the Earth, you start to go, oh, this is like, we're all one thing. Like, many
Mhm.
astronauts come back and say, like, we're all one. But then
Mhm.
you also have, look at what's going on with the World Cup right now. People are coming over and they're learning, like, these people are so far away and they're so abstract. But when they come here and I see them in my neighborhood or in my restaurants, in my streets, they're the same as me, and suddenly this distance has become nothing, and they're actually like, my friends and my neighbors. So
Mm.
I feel like we want to just remember that time and space are, I say they don't exist. What I mean is they don't exist as the constructs that we believe in most of the time. So if
Mhm.
I say to you, look, let's take the next 12 weeks and let's make that into a year, your brain goes, well, that's stupid. It's not. I mean, a year is 365 good days. Yes, but no. And this is a choice, right? When you start to
Mhm.
say, like, I'm going to break this next quarter into my year, you can now, like, I am personally in the middle of this enormous launch, and I'm just starting to talk about it. So you're going to get to hear about it first. I'm creating an entire new brand around the great wealth transfer. We'll talk about that in a minute, but I just want to say that when we're thinking in terms of like what I'm doing for this launch, I've got the next 3 months planned out so that there's like short term, medium term, long term goals, and there's this big vision. Like my vision right now is to build the largest community of high net worth women in the world, because we collectively, as you said earlier, you're like, we're wired to be in service. We will do so much better things with our money. And so I want to build that network. I'm super excited about that. Today, there isn't anybody in that network. I'm just naming it. I
Mhm.
am just claiming that name. We literally just came up with the title and we're kind of playing with it. So I haven't said what it is because I don't know what it is yet 100%. But
Right.
that's my point. Like we can be in that visioning, but then I also have this 3 months down the road thing in my head where I've already seen it done. The people are coming in, the community is growing, people are excited about it, the shift is happening, we're doing it.
Mm.
So and that's so much easier to see inside of a single quarter than it
Mhm.
is to see over a year or over 5 years or 10 years. So when we start thinking about like, I want to be doing this in 5 years, it's beautiful because that's the vision.
Mhm.
But now you've got to reverse engineer it. And most people make the mistake, I think, of saying, okay, what's exactly everything going to look like for the next 5 years? You don't know.
Mhm.
The question I like to ask in my coaching is very simple, and you can use this the rest of your life. What is my next smallest step? So
Mm.
even with my quarter of planning and my
Mhm.
quarter of, empire building, which is what I'm thinking of it in my head as,
Mhm.
I'm asking a simple question. What is my next smallest step? So you see
Mhm.
the vision down here, and then you come back and you ask, because July, August, September, which is that 3 quarters that we're going through, that we're just starting today,
Mhm.
that's so powerful
Yeah.
because time and space don't exist, and you can have whatever you want over that quarter. But you have to
Mm.
create it, you have to know what that vision is, and then you have to start asking, what's my next smallest step to get there? And you keep asking that. Most people get stopped because they say, I don't know the how. And this is not, because we can't know the how. The how is up to God. The how is up to our creator. The how is up to us to co-create. So we get to just ask, what's my next smallest step, over and over and over, while keeping that vision in. And when you
Yeah.
break that down into a quarter, that's really good because that's concrete. We can see 3 months ahead. So we
Yeah.
can know, like, I want this at the end of that quarter. And I don't know where the great wealth transfer work is going to lead me. I think
Mhm.
giant, big, fat, wonderful things,
Yeah.
but that's my vision for it.
Mhm.
Meantime, what's my next smallest step, over and over and over?
Wow. Listen, I was taking some notes as you were sharing. Break the quarter down as if it's a full year. I received that, and then the first time you said time and space doesn't exist. And then I heard you say it again, and it clicked for me. And that to me just says it's I have unlimited possibilities. Stop boxing my possibilities in a box. Stop putting a lid on my possibility, because time
Amen.
and space doesn't exist. But also, what I got from what you were saying is that if you utilize the 12 weeks and be laser focused on whatever that objective is for those 12 weeks, powerful things can happen unlimited things can happen, which now I want to pivot and talk about your book, because I think this is a perfect segue. So your book, The Passive Income Power Plan, 108 Ways to Make Money While You Sleep. And you wrote this book, you had the vision, you manifested it, and now everyone have the copies in their hand. If you don't, how can somebody find that book?
It's actually kind of everywhere. You can get it on barnesandnoble.com. You can get it on Amazon. It is available in bookstores all over the world. I don't know which ones, but I know it's gotten to India and it's gotten like everywhere, and it's available. I know if you go into Barnes and Noble, you can get it. So and I was very blessed. It was a #1 seller on Barnes and Noble for all their online business books. And a friend who's a best-selling author said to me, for a woman to have a business book become #1 is a big deal. And I'm saying that because I didn't know until somebody told me. I'm just like, you put your work out into the world. I've written 5 books. This is the first one that's really hit it out of the park, as you said, like USA Today. That's also a big deal. And the person who helped me with that campaign, she said to me, you knocked a fiction book off that list. It hit like somewhere in the middle of the list. And she's like, business books don't show up on there that often. That's so cool. But something else that was equally delightful for me, there was a group of Black women who had started a book club. I was their first book. And then the woman who had met me online, I think, or through one of my speaking engagements, she said to me, would you come be on we do it on Zoom. Will you come be on our a book club a meeting? And I was like, sure, absolutely. I'm telling you, to see these women holding my little book in their hands and talking about creating their first passive income stream, I like cried in the middle of the book club. I was so proud of them. And then I just posted this on LinkedIn yesterday that they followed up. They had in their next book club meeting, they're reading the new Terry McMillan book. But the follow-up questions were, which income streams have you created? What actions have you taken? Like, they were really moving with the book. And to me, that's so exciting, because I didn't write the book. The book's major lesson is there's 108 ways, pick one and do that one, and then go on to the next one. But to me, the most exciting thing about the book is people are responding. Like, the reviews are saying, I felt smarter when I was finished reading this book. I felt like, Halle wasn't talking down to me. And I love that, because we need to learn, and we're not going to learn when we're like, this all went over my head. I'm working on another book. I'm helping to edit a book that belongs to a friend and client, which is an incredibly important book. It absolutely needs to be out there. But I keep saying to him, this is your audience. Your audience is mainstream. They do not understand these acronyms. They do not understand these words. Do not talk over them. Talk to them. And I think that's so important. And I'm very grateful that the Passive Income Power Plan has struck such a chord for people, because it's a super easy read. It's little. It's tiny, tiny. I don't know if you can see there's a bunch of copies of it over there. On there's a stack of them. It's tiny. It's little bitty, because it fits in your purse, right? And that was so important to me. Like, if you're going to have a physical copy of the book, you need to be able to carry it around and use it
wherever you go.
And I had no idea that these things would be important to people, but they are. People come up to me all the time and say, I can put it in my purse. That's so cool. I didn't people were like trying to talk me out of that. It needs to be bigger and more important. And it's not. And also, it's not expensive. It's $10. And that's because I wanted to get it in the hands of as many people as possible. If you read it on Kindle and you have a Kindle subscription, you can read it for free. So I think that the important thing about the book is it's got my coaching woven through it. So I call it bumper sticker coaching, because if it's short enough to fit on a bumper sticker, you're going to remember it in an emergency. So I love that it's this combination of like coaching and also giving you all these ideas and then giving you a blueprint. I was going to
Yeah.
call it the passive income blueprint, but that was taken. So
Mhm.
now it's the passive income power plan, which is more powerful.
Yes.
And but it gives you a plan. It gives you a step-by-step plan. And there's a bunch of freebies with the book as well that, there's a QR code in the back so you can get those. And those are everything with the book is designed to support you in reaching your dreams, because when we have financial freedom,
Mhm.
we have control over our lives and we can help all the other people in our lives who don't have it.
Yes.
So we want to get to that place where we have that financial freedom, where we can claim that we can support, you know, women are saying like, I retired my husband. I gave a college scholarship to my child, to my family member, to a stranger. That's what we want. We want to be able to do really good things with our money.
Yeah. And so everything that I'm hearing that you just shared is that you wrote the book with intention. And that is why it was successful. It is successful and will continue to be successful. An excerpt from the book: Passive income is about earning money with minimum effort after the initial setup. Is your money working for you? Your content working for you? Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Um, so I think that question, is your money working for you, is really important. So I'm going to talk money language for a minute.
Hmm.
The US dollar has lost 90% of its value from the beginning of the 20th century, so around 1900, or let's say 1913, the year that the Fed was created. Between then and 1990, it lost 90% of its value. It's
Hmm.
lost about 95% of its value since then. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying it lost another 5%. I'm
Hmm.
saying a 90% loss was added to, so now it's only worth 10%. That
Hmm.
10% is all that's left, and now it's lost 95% of the 10%.
Mm.
So we're talking about that, and this is why a sandwich used to cost 5 cents and now it costs $18. That
Hmm.
is not just like, oh, that's weird. Like in my lifetime, in our lifetime,
Yeah.
a movie ticket is going to cost $100, and that sucks.
Right.
But it's not because the movie became that much more valuable. It's because of inflation. And
Hmm.
all currency is what's called fiat. It's owned by the government and it is not backed by anything. By the way, in the course of my money, teachings and learnings and all of this, I have discovered most people think that the dollar is backed by gold. Still, the dollar
Hmm.
has not been backed by gold in over 50 years. Nixon decoupled us from the gold standard. That gave them a license to print money. That's actually why they did it. From 2020 until now, we have printed somewhere between 80 and 90% of all the money in circulation. Let me explain what that means. It's like you put 80 to 90% more water in the pool. And then they
Hmm.
were like, well, the pool water only went up by 6 inches. That's your inflation, right?
Hmm.
Well, I know there are a bunch of different economic factors, but that is not logical. And
Right.
so inflation only went up by 6%, but your eggs cost 4 times as much as they did 3 years ago. Like that's, and avian flu, okay, one season, but its eggs are still $8 for a dozen in a lot of places.
Hmm.
Um, that kind of stuff is basically, I'm going to break this down really simply. We're being lied to about our money on a global scale.
Hmm.
So when I talk about putting your money to work for you, what I'm saying is I want you to get educated about how to bring in more income streams and support yourself. And
Hmm.
by the way, buy Bitcoin because it helps to hedge, it helps to counteract what's
Mm.
going on with the dollar. Bitcoin is
Okay.
deflationary. That means it gets worth more over time. That's why it's worth so much today, because
Mm.
already it's gotten worth so much more since it was created in 2009. But it's going to be worth a lot more. You're never going to say that about the dollar. The dollar is only ever going to be worth less because it is inflationary. And I
Mhm.
never knew. I'm like, why is money inflationary? It's
Mhm.
because of how it's been manipulated over the years. And this is true of every currency in the world. There was recently something called BRICS, BRICS, which was a coalition of different countries going, hey, we don't want to use the dollar anymore. We're going to go over here. Well, that's kind of fallen apart in a morass of, I don't know whether it's ever going to become a thing. But the
Mhm.
idea was, instead of backing everything with the dollar, we're going to back everything with gold again. It didn't work out because we want everything to be backed by the dollar because it is. And so it's kind of like all of the world currencies are propping each other up. I don't want
Mhm.
to get too much into the history of money or
Mhm.
any of that stuff. And there's a lot of books you can read on it. But what I want you to understand is when you leave your money in the bank, save in savings, you should have a savings account. The savings account should have a few months worth of living expenses put away in it. But all of your other money is like soldiers that you're leaving in the barracks when they could be out capturing more soldiers and helping you to win the war. That's the
Mhm.
difference. And so when you put your money to work for you by creating a passive income stream, some of these income streams can be created with $0 or $500. Most people are like, well, I cannot create a passive income stream because that would mean buying a laundromat and I don't have $10,000. Okay, I get it. But there are plenty of passive income streams these days that can be created with nothing or next to nothing. And the book outlines all of those because education is power. When we have knowledge and information, we can say, I can't do this, but I can do this. I
Mhm.
can't go all the way over here, but I could take that next smallest step toward my dream. And then, and this is a quantum physics thing. You said this earlier. I really wanted a chance to talk about this. So I'm
Mhm.
psyched that we came back around to this. Everything is possibility. Quantum physics says everything is a possibility, and that wave of possibilities, which contains all of the possibilities of the universe, gets
Mhm.
collapsed into a single particle, which then moves forward through time and space because of the attention that we give it. That
Mhm.
until that particle is observed, it doesn't exist. And the simple version of that means you can be or do anything you want, but you have to focus your attention on it. And
Mhm.
we don't. We focus our attention on it for a second, and then we focus our attention over here, and then over here, and over here, and then over here. And then the other thing is we focus on the positive, and then we focus on the negative, 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 and eventually we focus on the positive again. But mostly we spend all of our time watering the negative tree instead of watering the positive tree. Which tree lives? The one that you feed, the one you give your attention to, the one you water with air and sunlight, i.e. your thoughts.
Yes.
So that's the invitation, is get into that field of all possibilities. Know that everything is possible, including your next income stream. And now start to ask that question, what's my next smallest step? Because it collapses the wave into the particle of this is my next thing that I'm doing. And now the question moves us forward in through time and space to the creation, because thoughts become things. Not every thought, but the ones that we put intention behind, that is how they become things. There is
Mhm.
nothing that was a thought there was nothing that is a thing that wasn't first a thought.
Mhm.
And that's because of the intention behind it. So all of this stuff is like, I can't talk about money without talking about spirituality, without talking about quantum physics. It's like all like, a thing, but it's because it's all one thing. And that is, you are the creator. Your shifts are happening to support you, and you are co-creating, and amazing things are happening when you stop letting life just happen to you, and when you make a decision to impose your desires, your will, your choices on your life. It's just people don't really like the decisions that they have to make. I didn't want to leave my 14-year relationship. I left behind somebody who I upset very deeply. And it's still really, I mean, I'm almost crying telling you this. It's so, the wound is still raw, and for me too, but it's what I needed to do anyway. And sometimes those decisions are hard, and yet we have to make them, or we don't, and we just stay where we are. And those are our choices.
I just really appreciate your transparency on today. And I want to go, back to some things that you just said, and your heart that you're sharing on today is impacting me, and I'm sure everyone that's listening. Again, for those that are tuned in, you are tuned into the shift. I am Catherine E. Trotter, your host. We are having a conversation with Halle. It's been impactful. But I'm gonna tell you, you caught me. I want to read another excerpt. But when you started talking about the soldiers, I was jotting down notes. I've never heard of it put that way in terms of deploying your money in different categories, like it's a soldier, like on the battlefield. But I love that analogy on how you said that and how it's resonating with me, because to your point, yes, have the savings account, make sure enough is in there for emergencies and several months of bills. But with the other portion of your money, what are the soldiers doing? What is the money doing for you? That is going to stick with me. I'm now going to see my money as soldiers, literally.
I love
Um,
that. Good. Yay. Send them out into battle. Let them
yes,
do the
yes,
work.
onto the battle, the money battlefield. And then you started talking about intention and quantum physics. Listen, for those that don't have the book yet, even while this interview is going on, you can go right online and order the book. Okay, you can get the physical copy. Ladies, you can stick it right in your purse, whatever bags you're using. So you might need to refer back to it, refresh yourself on the go. Because we're speaking with a woman with intentionality. She didn't just write the book just for the sake of writing the book. She wrote the book to empower others. And that's everything that's being stated on today. And speaking of which, another excerpt says passive income isn't some myth reserved for the ultra rich or overnight internet millionaires. It's real, it's possible, and you don't need a revolutionary idea or a 10-year plan to start. You just need to decide. And that connects back to when you were talking about intention. And talk about that, because even in your personal life, and you've had to make intentional transitions, shifts. You've had to make decisions. Even the one that you just mentioned, you had to transition from a relationship, even as you're still processing that moment, or moments, should I say, but you made a decision. And talk about the toughness as an entrepreneur, as a woman, when you have to make these tough decisions, but you have to make it to continue to move forward. Sometimes it's like a battle within self.
You're absolutely right. What I can say is that your resilience carries you through here.
Mm,
So, and many women don't have that resilience because what we now call your nervous system, right? The
mhm,
way you feel and interact with the world
mhm,
is, or the way your feelings, I should say, interact with the world. Those that part of ourselves is rarely regulated. We can regulate it. I call it working out at the spiritual gym. It's something that, like, when I coach private clients, they get like a whole packet of stuff when they start working with me, and I give them suggestions for their spiritual gym workout, because you have to really sit with yourself a little bit every day and give yourself a chance to get centered. Deep breathing can help with that. Meditation can help with that. Exercise can help with that. The right things can help with that. I'm going to give you like a really important example. This is not something that I developed myself, but something that a friend of mine, who's she calls herself a priestess.
mhm,
She shared this with me. When we watch television, we're receiving. The masculine is the thing that gives, and the feminine is the thing that receives. This is not a sexual thing, although you could think of it in terms of sex, right? The penis gives and the vagina
mhm,
receives, right? That's a similar idea, but we're not really talking about sex here. We're talking about the divine masculine, the divine feminine, and these are just energies. So the receiving is the feminine, the giving is the masculine. That's just empiric. So it's not about sex. It's not about whether you believe in this stuff or not. I used to really poo-poo it. I was like, I spent a lot of time, especially my first 2 decades, in the masculine world. And so I was like, I can do this with the best of them. I can hustle with the guys, and I can make my voice heard in any room. That's just like a natural gift that I have. So I was always like, I'm the same as them. And it wasn't until I really embraced my feminine, my receiving parts, that I felt that I was really hold, because we tend to deny the half of ourselves that we feel uncomfortable with, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what they call the shadow side in spiritual work. So when you watch television, you are receiving, and the television is the masculine giving. The problem is we tend to watch a ton of violence. We're watching the news, we're watching murder shows, we're watching all of our, doctor shows. I mean, just look at the career that Dick Wolf has built for himself. Chicago Med, Chicago PD, Chicago, what is it? Fire, Med, and there's a third one. Anyway, the
Mm-hmm.
point is, we have so much of that.
Yeah.
Somebody will greenlight studio will greenlight a new doctor show before they'll give you anything else, because they know that stuff sells. But the news since I think 1970s has been the whole, like, if it bleeds, it leads, right? There's a terribly tragic story that was turned into a film of a news anchor who got she was mentally disturbed to some extent, but she got so upset she was a news anchor in Florida, actually, at the time when the whole "if it bleeds, it leads" was starting to happen. That phrase was coined. She committed suicide on air. She pulled out a gun in the middle of her news broadcast and shot herself in the head. And that was a turning point in the way that we interacted with our television sets. And unfortunately, we've never looked back. We've doubled down on it. We've expanded on it. We are so caught up in the ugly. That's why, like, to me, the World Cup has been, and I couldn't care less about sports normally. My mother, on the other hand, has a whole handwritten World Cup sheet. She knows every single game. She's up in the middle of the night watching them. It's like, I mean, you could be two women and in the same family and be completely different. So whichever version you are, it's good. But for me, the experience in America has been watching people come together, and these messages of joy that I've seen, and these messages of camaraderie, and these messages of unity. We're not receiving very much of that. Now, there is something called the Good News Network, for example. We have television shows, like there's a new version of Pride and Prejudice that's just coming out in the fall. And I just got finished watching The Other Bennett Sister for the second time. And we have Bridgerton now. Why are we so drawn to that material? Well, it's pretty straightforward. It gives us a break from all of that masculine receiving that's violent. It gives us masculine giving that's violent. When we receive the masculine, and what we're receiving is pastoral or idyllic, or shares messages of love and happiness, we are getting our nervous systems fed, and we're getting our cup filled up, and we're enjoying. When we do that from a place of, like, I know women who listen to murder podcasts to relax. That, I get it. Some people do, but it's like, that's how shifted our nervous systems have become, not in a good way. Now, if you're one of those people, and whatever gets you through the night, I'm okay with that. But I think that as a society, as a world, we've gotten really, really down a dark path, because all of the receiving that we do is through our entertainment, and so much of that is not supporting us. So when you want to get to a place where you are feeling the sunshine and the light of your life, it's not going to be likely that it's from that experience, because it's going to continue to push the negative masculine into your receiving world. So that's something that you could shift immediately by choosing different material to receive, or by receiving differently. Maybe not through a visual medium like TV, but rather like through books or something that is going to be a little bit softer. Like even a book, even a murder mystery, tells the story differently than that we take in 80% of our information through our eyes. So when you see something on TV, you're getting it, you're reading it in a different way than when you're reading it in a book. So I think
Yeah.
those hopefully will help.
No, what I'm taking in from what you just shared is with all this intentionality, we have to be intentional about what we're taking in. What environment are we around? What environments are we putting ourselves in? Because that matters in terms of, we know the whole conversation at the top was talking about building this great wealth, building our businesses and so forth. But if we're feeding ourselves things that can detract from that, is counterproductive. And so we have to be mindful. And then I think part of what you were sharing earlier, we have to sit with ourselves and sometimes ask ourselves, why am I being drawn to XYZ, whatever that might be, right? And is this filling my cup? Is it filling my joy cup? Is it filling me up to be vibrant and productive so I can be that wealthy individual? Because what happens in our personal life, what happens in our psyche, the story you shared about the young lady that was the news and took her own life in that way. I mean, that speaks volumes. A lot of times we can be in business, but we're still dealing with turmoil. And if we don't know how to process that or handle that or be transparent, and I believe that is the one word I'm summarizing even our conversation today is just transparency. Sometimes we can't be and if we're not transparent, the lid on our wealth will be capped because we have to know who we are, right? And we have to vibrate in that level. For those of you that's watching this show, you might be saying, oh, well, Haley got it all together. She know everything. She got the money, the wealth, she got the clients. But there's another excerpt from the book that I want to read. It says, no one taught me about how to build wealth. No one explained how to make money work for me. Instead of it was the other way around. Like so many of us, I was raised to earn it, spend it, and hope there was some left over. And then you said, but once I understood what was possible, everything changed. So for those that's watching this segment, because I know sometimes we hear from people and you're like, well, she might have just been born into money. She knows all of no.
No.
She's you, she's me, she's we, right? And she had a moment in her life where, just flowing with the flow, going with the flow of everything that was taught traditionally, right? So you're hearing from someone that is a part of our community, but she saw another way, another path, another open door for her to go down. And now she's an educator to the masses. As we get ready to wind down this segment, Haley, please share your website, any socials that you want to plug.
Thank you so much. So I want to say real quick one more thing, because I think this does, not everybody comes from poverty. I certainly didn't. I was raised in a very middle class household.
Right.
But I tell this story in the book. There was a time that I had minus $10 in my bank account. I was like, trying to get through the weekend, hope the check didn't bounce before Monday so I could go and put a little bit more money in. That's like, the most embarrassing thing that happened to me. I remember standing at that checkout counter at the grocery store going, like, please let this, like, just, and this is in days when you wrote checks, like, please don't let this check bounce right now. That's a horrible feeling. And I know a lot of people are in that place today. I've been in that place too, but whether you have a bunch of money or you have no money, it's more a matter of like, what's your mindset? What are you doing with it? So I just wanted to remind you and also this is a bumper sticker coaching thing that's in the book. When you see somebody, like, let's say you look at me and you're like, oh, Halle has all the wealth and all the this and all the that. When you do that, you're actually saying, and I don't. It's silent, but that is literally what you're saying, and I don't. So the way that you shift that, because you've just sent a message out, I told you thoughts become things, you have just reinforced that negative message. You want to turn that around. You say, some of that for me, please. That's your bumper sticker coaching. Some of that for me, please. That means you're drawing that closer, and you're also telling whoever it is you're co-creating with, I would like that. Some of that for me, please. So just that one shift will take you from continuing to send a silent message of no, turning that into a silent message of yes. Every time you see somebody who's got something that you want, what if they were the way shower for you? What if they were showing you what is possible for you? Wouldn't that be a beautiful thing?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can get all of this stuff and more everywhere that I am on social. My first name, last name, I think are getting put up here somewhere. You can see them on my, under
Yes.
my face right now. So if you just look me up on any social, I'm the only Halle Eavelyn in the world. Just make sure you spell Evelyn with the extra A in the middle, like Evelyn, the woman's name, but with an extra A. So if you look for Halle Eavelyn on any socials, you'll find me. I'm on Instagram least because I have the smallest. That's not true. I'm on all of them equally, but I mean I have the smallest number of followers on Instagram, but I am growing it. And I have lots of followers on LinkedIn and Facebook, and I would love for you to become one of them. I also want to invite you to go to Halle Wealth, HALLE Wealth.com. HalleWealth.com is where, if you haven't bought the book yet, you can buy the Passive Income Power Plan. You can download the freebies there. And you can also go to HalleMoney.com and sign up for the top 10 secrets of wealth that every woman needs to know. And that will put you on my mailing list. So you're going to get a newsletter every week that's about the great wealth transfer, about bringing in more wealth into your life. If you are saying to yourself right now, like, well, the great wealth transfer isn't going to affect me because nobody's leaving me a bunch of money, which is what is happening in the great wealth transfer. $105 trillion is moving between the current generation, the baby boomer generation, and their beneficiaries. This will happen between now and 2040. So it's the first year that it's happening this year. But if you are one of those women where you're going, well, that's not going to be me, it's going to affect all women. And so I'm going to be talking a lot about that in the upcoming months. So do go to HalleMoney.com, get on my mailing list, download the top 10 wealth secrets every woman needs to know, and go to HalleWealth.com. You can buy the book directly from there, and you can also get the freebies that are on the site.
Well, there you have it, guys. We have had a phenomenal segment on today as we have kicked off the third quarter. Yes, we've kicked it. We've kicked down the door. We're in the door. We're walking with intention. For those of you that's been plugging into this segment, and this conversation has been rich, we need you to hit the share. We need you to text it. We need you to email it. And I know some of you are wondering, like, what is that little circle in the top to the right corner? Unlock 2027. Well, for those of you that was a part of Unlock 2026 and you said you had a phenomenal time and walked away with so much knowledge, well, we're doing it all over again next year. Lock in. Saturday, April 17th, Unlock 2027 Business Conference will be at the BWI Marriott Hotel. And actually today, early tickets have gone live. So you can head to our website, strategicseednetwork.com, and snag up your early bird ticket. We look forward to seeing you there. And we have a lot of mini pop-ups leading up to next year. So stay plugged to our website for more information. Once again, Halle, any final words?
I always love when podcasters ask that question. What I want you to walk away with is, you can do this. You're not too old. You're not too late. You're not too poor. You're not behind. You're listening right now, and you have a dream in your heart. So open your heart to what would be possible. Ask, what's my next smallest step? Your next smallest step is probably to go buy my book, but get and download all the freebies. But get into that new mindset of, I can create what I want. I can create the life that I want. It may not show up tomorrow, but it'll show up if you keep taking your next smallest step in that direction.
I can create the life that I want. And I'm actually texting that to myself, typing it to myself. I can create the life that I want. If you're listening right now, I think you should send that liner to yourself as a reminder all throughout the third quarter. And with that being said, see everyone at the top.